In this episode, we talk about the Indian military's efforts to strengthen its defense capabilities by procuring high-quality air defense radars. We also talk about Chief Election Commissioner Gyanesh Kumar announcing the second phase of the special intensive revision that will be held nationwide. But we begin today by talking about why the governing body for cricket in India has approached the Supreme Court and why the case in question can have major implications not just on cricket, but even certain reality TV shows. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Even if you don't follow cricket, you probably know that the sport has been plagued by match-fixing scandals for years. From the infamous 2000 India-South Africa case to allegations in the Indian Premier League. These incidents have repeatedly made headlines and disillusioned the fans. But what many may not know is that despite being a cricketing powerhouse, India still doesn't have a law that specifically criminalizes match-fixing. And that's why the Board of Control for Cricket in India has now approached the Supreme Court seeking to plug this legal gap. To understand how the law currently views match fixing and what criminalizing it could mean, my colleague Shashank Bhargava speaks to the Indian Express's Vineet Bhalla, who writes on law for the paper.
Vineet, this might come as a surprise to some listeners, the fact that something as controversial as match fixing does not have any specific law against it. And we've seen these big controversies in the past, and perhaps the biggest one was in 2000, and it involved the South African captain Hansie Cronje. And that time, players like Ajay Jadeja, for example, were banned. And later, of course, we saw other controversies as well. But did it come as a surprise to you initially that we don't have a law regarding match fixing?
So actually, yeah, you're correct. Before I read about this particular Supreme Court case, I too was under the impression that match fixing qualifies as the offense of cheating. And I was too young in 2000 to have actually paid attention to what was happening back then. But I do remember that not just Hansie Cronje, but a lot of Indian cricketers, as you mentioned, apart from Jadeja, there was the cricket captain at that time, Mohammad Azharuddin. He too was held guilty of match fixing. Several Indian cricketers, I think Kapil Dev was accused as well, but no accusation against him was proven. And Hansie Cronje, as we know, he died soon after under really mysterious circumstances. So this specter of match fixing has always hung over cricket, and there are other cricket playing nations which have criminalized match fixing. They make it either qualify it as an offense of cheating or as an offense of corruption in sports, but surprisingly in India we still don't qualify it as an offense. In fact, when all of this had happened in 2000, the then sports minister under the NDA government at that time, he had called for a CBI inquiry into this entire matter. And the CBI had come out with a very detailed report in 2001 in which it named all of these cricketers from not just India but other parts of the world as well to be involved in match fixing. But even in that report, the CBI concluded that under the Indian law, there is no criminal offense made out against any of these individuals.
Right, and the reason we are talking about this is because of this particular case for which the BCCI has now approached the Supreme Court. Tell us what this case is about.
So very briefly, this case stems from match-fixing allegations in the Karnataka Premier League in 2018 and 19. And as a result of these accusations, the Bangalore police had initiated a case against some players, I think a coach, a team owner, and some bookies involved in this. And the police ended up framing a charge sheet against all of these individuals, in which they were charged with the offense of cheating under the Indian Penal Code, which was the criminal law statute at that time. Now, these accused individuals challenged the prosecution in the Karnataka High Court, stating that even if we have engaged in match fixing, even then under the Indian law, we are not guilty of any offense. And the Karnataka High Court in 2022 came out with a judgment siding with these individuals, saying that you're correct. There is no offense of cheating under Indian law because there is no offense of cheating made out by match fixing, because the court held that under section 420 of the IPC, which defines cheating, there must be a dishonest inducement to deliver any property. And the High Court said that no one has been induced to deliver any property to these players as a result of their match fixing. The court said that spectators may have a feeling that they're going to witness a fair game being played, but they buy tickets voluntarily. So the question of inducement to buy a ticket can be ruled out.
Wait, so in this inducement argument, for example, if I sell you a mug telling you that it's made of ceramic, now you buy that mug, but when that mug arrives, you find out that it's made of plastic. It's not made of ceramic. Now that in the eyes of the law would be cheating because I induced you to buy this product saying that it was ceramic when it's not. But the same logic the Karnataka High Court said does not apply to those who buy IPL tickets because there was no such inducement in that case. That is its logic.
Yes. In the example you mentioned, you said that you have expressly told me that this mug is made of ceramic, right? And I have bought it on that express assurance, and therefore it qualifies as a dishonest inducement on your part. What the High Court said was that there is no express assurance made of the match being played in a fair manner. As I said, the court said that spectators may have a feeling that they're going to witness a fair game being played, but they did not buy the tickets on the condition that this is going to be a fair game. It's logic that you can find holes in, let's put it that way. But this is what the High Court held.
Right, but some could argue that perhaps people did buy the tickets with the assumption, and even though nothing was explicitly stated, that this is a fair competition and this is why they bought the tickets.
Exactly. I mean, when you usually go watch sports, I suppose you think that, we are going to be watching a fair contest. But then maybe some people go watch sports only for the spectacle or the experience, and maybe the fact, if they come to know later that the outcome was predetermined, that doesn't change their enjoyment of the experience. I mean, come to think of it, a lot of us who used to watch professional wrestling, WWE as kids, we did not know that the outcomes were they were predetermined, right? And we still, I don't know whether later on knowing that, this is all fixed, that whether that changes your enjoyment of what you're watching. So you're correct in the sense that you can poke holes in what the Karnataka High Court's rationale was.
Right, and this is what the Karnataka High Court said. Tell us, where does the BCCI come in? It had approached the court because of this case. So what is BCCI's argument?
So the Karnataka government appealed against this Karnataka High Court judgment before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has been hearing this matter. As you know, progress in these cases goes very slowly. And it was last week when the BCCI filed an intervention application in this matter. An intervention application is usually filed by a third party which is not involved in the case, making a claim that we need to be heard in this matter as well because we are an interested party. The BCCI's locus standi, or the reason why they filed it, is, of course, they said that we are the primary body for administering cricket in India. And in their intervention application, the BCCI has said that match fixing qualifies as cheating because there is an express or implied promise not just to the paying public but also to sponsors and owners of these teams in case of franchise cricket that the match will be played fairly and honestly. And therefore, when the players break this promise, they are deceiving the public and the sponsors. And because of this deceival, they are getting money, right? So I think the BCCI's intervention application is one unique point or one novel point it makes, which wasn't made, which we haven't seen earlier is that apart from the audience, they've also brought in the perspective of advertisers and sponsors, which wasn't the case earlier. So, yeah, and the case is still pending. We'll see whether the BCCI, like what the Supreme Court makes of this intervention application.
And here we are talking about cricket or perhaps sports in general even. But since you mentioned wrestling earlier, how does this logic apply to other forms of entertainment like reality TV shows and especially competitive shows like KBC or Indian Idol? Would the same logic apply to them as well?
So under the current Indian legal position, if these shows were fixed, it would not qualify as an offense. However, if the BCCI and the Karnataka government, they succeed in the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court comes out with a judgment which would be a landmark judgment saying that match fixing qualifies as the offense of cheating, then you're correct that maybe when it comes to singing contests or when it comes to a quiz show like Kaun Banega Crorepati, if there is some corruption involved in determining the outcome, then that would also qualify as cheating. When it comes to reality shows, again, if we're talking about a reality show like Roadies or Big Boss, then I'm not sure whether the argument still holds true there, because it is commonly accepted among the audience that what you're watching on the screen is not exactly organic. And there is no, the competition is also a very subjective one. Whereas when it comes to, on the other hand, a singing show or a quiz show or a dance show, it is at least seemingly more objective, the criteria for determining the winner.
And you mentioned it earlier, but could you elaborate on how other countries have dealt with this?
Yeah, so in other cricket playing nations, after the 2000 match fixing scandal came out, there were major changes made in the laws. So I can talk about both UK and South Africa, where they have central laws in place which say that they have very wide definitions for corruption in sport, which includes match fixing, and they say that these are criminal offences. Then in Australia, you have different laws at the central and state levels, and these laws also cover match fixing and define it as an offence. So a lot of these countries, cricket playing nations, after 2000, they did take steps to criminalize match fixing. It hasn't happened in India yet, even though the Law Commission of India had come out with a report in 2018 recommending that match fixing should and sports fraud should be made specifically criminal offences with severe punishments. That is what the Law Commission had recommended. But unfortunately, the government hasn't done that. Even recently, the government enacted a sports governance bill in the recent parliament session, in which not only was there no mention of match fixing, but the BCCI was excluded from the ambit of accountability from the government altogether, on the logic that the BCCI does not take direct financial aid from the government. So we've always seen that the parliament has traditionally adopted a hands-off approach when it comes to cricket governance in India.
And next, we turn our attention to India's defense capabilities. Earlier this year, when tensions escalated between India and Pakistan following the Pahalgam terror attack and Operation Sindoor, during which the Indian military targeted 9 terror sites in Pakistan, hundreds of Pakistani drones managed to breach the Indian airspace. This raised serious concerns within the security establishment, prompting the Indian military to focus on improving its radar systems and to begin procuring a range of advanced air defense radars.
So these are meant to track, detect, engage aerial objects with small radar cross-sections, like the Pakistani drones which infiltrated Indian airspace in May.
That's the Indian Express's Amrita Nayak Dutta, who reports on defense for the paper.
Of course, they were all shot down. They could not cause any damage, but they were there in the Indian space. So these radars are typically meant to detect them, track them, and also take them down. So this is why the army is procuring radars right now. This gap came into, I won't say it's a gap exactly, but yes, there is scope of improvement here. And this came to the fore after Operation Sindoor, when you remember Pakistan was sending large number of swarm drones into the Indian airspace and across the northern and western borders. So this is why this requirement came up.
Amrita tells us that these air defense radars use radio waves to determine the direction, the distance, and the velocity of target objects.
So air defense radars are typically used by the military to search, detect, identify, and also help destroy aerial threats. So the army is seeking to procure about 45 low-level lightweight radars of the enhanced category and up to 48 air defense fire control radars and 10 low-level lightweight radars of the improved category. So there are two different low-level lightweight radars. One is of the enhanced and one is improved. There's not much difference between the two except some technical specifications. And then there is a air defense fire control radar drone detectors. There are primarily two kinds of air defense radars. One is the surveillance radars and the other is the fire control radar. So if you ask me the difference between the two, the former is constantly looks at the sky. They are mainly used to detect aerial objects. These detections are then analyzed by an operator to identify the objects that are being spotted. So surveillance radars, which are very basic surveillance radars, they're not directly connected to any anti-aircraft weapon system. Unlike fire control radars, the later one, the second radar which I discussed, which help surface-to-air guns or missiles target aerial threats. So one is only for surveillance and the other is kind of connects to a weapon system and it communicates to the weapon system to destroy the target. So there are two different kind of air defense radars broadly.
Yeah, and keeping this in mind, are there any specific models that the army is trying to procure?
Yeah, so there are one RFP and two RFIs which have been initiated by the army, which are basic steps in the defense procurement process. You know, you sent out a RFI just to know what are the kind of radars available in the market from the vendors. And other is, a more detailed process, the next step, the RFP. So if you ask me the type of radars, yes, there are 45 low-level lightweight radars of the enhanced category and 10 low-level lightweight radars of the improved category. More or less similar, barring a technical difference here and there. So these are the two different kind of radars that are being procured. And thirdly, there are also 48 air defense fire control radars, which are also drone detectors. So, the whole purpose of, if I explain, you don't really need a big missile system to take down a small, cheap quality or harmless drone. You would want to use it for something like an aircraft. So these radars are typically used to detect the smaller targets which has very low RCS, and they'll be able to detect them, identify them, track them, and also in certain cases communicate to a weapon system to take them down.
And Amrita, what makes these radars significant for India's military preparedness and how will they enhance the army's capabilities?
So during Operation Sindoor, hundreds of low-cost enemy drones were used to camouflage a few surveillance and attack drones. So they had entered the Indian airspace from across the border, and they had, all across, if you remember, the northern and western border, there were a lot of drone infiltration. They were, of course, all taken down with AD guns and all. But even then, they had entered the Indian airspace. So this kind of new procurements, it stems from the need to tackle such future threats from, smaller, low-flying aerial objects such as drones, which can actually overwhelm older air defense systems or even blindside them. So if you see the smaller air defense systems, some of them may be harmless, but they could also camouflage attack drones and surveillance drones, which was the case during Operation Sindoor. So once these radars are procured, the air defense infrastructure will be more robust, it will be strengthened, and it can prepare the military to tackle these kind of threats in future when a lot of swarms of drones or low-flying aerial objects come into the Indian airspace and overwhelm the older air defense systems. Robust air defense network with multiple drones with this kind of smaller radars which can detect drones, easily take them out. This will be the need in the future because as in modern wars, there is not always necessarily an aircraft is going to breach the Indian airspace. It may not be like that in future. So there will be more use of drones and all that is being predicted. And these kind of radars will help detect and tackle such threats.
And in the current context, what is the status of the Army's and the Indian Air Force's radar systems?
So there are some older air defense systems already with the Army and Air Force. Some of them are new also. So if you see, the Air Force controls most of the high and medium power radars, which have a range of several hundred kilometers, and they can track aerial objects or at even higher altitudes. So they can, look at threats such as fighter jets, enemy transport aircraft, airborne warning and control system, AWACS. So these high power and medium power radars are typically for larger objects and at a higher altitude. And both the Air Force and the Army also have some low-level lightweight radars. These have lower ranges and are meant to track aerial objects which are smaller and flying at lower altitudes. The fire control radars, Indian Air Force have a range of radars in place, such as the 3D Central Acquisition Radar, the Rajendra Radar. The Army, on the other hand, they use flycatchers, which are indigenously upgraded USFM radars, upgraded Super Fledermaus radars, and the Air Defense Tactical Control Radar. So procurement of these two kind of low-level lightweight radars, both of the improved and the enhanced category, and the air defense fire control radars, which are drone detectors, they stem from the need to tackle future threats from such smaller and low-flying objects such as drones. And that's primarily the need. So while working on the story, I had spoken to a lot of military officers, and they had explained to me that in the new age conflicts globally include Operation Sindoor and Hamas against Israel. These kind of smaller, cheaper, low-flying objects are being used. And there is a need to increase the number of low-level lightweight radars and other fire control radars, which can not only detect threats with low RCS, but also identify friend from foe in a cluttered airspace. What I mean by that is a smaller object can be your own object also, can be your own military asset also, right? So these kind of radars, they should be able to also identify that this is not an Indian object, this is a Pakistani object, this is an enemy drone, and this is not an Indian drone.
And Amrita, apart from radars, what other weapons strengthen the Indian military's ability to handle a situation like Operation Sindoor?
So Niharika, India's air defense infrastructure is, I would say, pretty robust. Like we saw in Operation Sindoor, there was not much breaches or there was not any damages on Indian assets. So that shows that Indian air defense system already is pretty good. It's robust. When you ask me what the kind of weapon system that India has, I would just like to explain to you how India's air defense infrastructure works and what all are the things that is there in it. So it comprises air defense guns. It has surface-to-air missiles like the Russian S-400s, which were recently procured, the indigenously made Akash missile system. The army has a network system called Akash Tir in place. This provides a common real-time picture to the control room, radars and AD guns, thus enabling some coordination of air defense operations by integrating various radar systems, sensors and communication technologies into a single operational framework. Exactly like armies, the army has a bigger network system in place. It's called the Integrated Air Command and Control System, the IACCS. It's an automated command and control system that integrates data from all air defense assets to detect, identify, intercept, and destroy hostile intruders while simultaneously controlling offensive packages deep inside enemy territory. So we have this network systems in place. There are radars, there are air defense guns, there are surface-to-air missile systems to not just defend airspace, but also launch attacks on the enemy when needed. So apart from all this, like you know, the defense establishment is currently focused on setting up a comprehensive air defense shield as part of Mission Sudarshan Chakra that was announced by Prime Minister Modi on the Independence Day. So like I told you, we already have an air defense system in place, but the Sudarshan Chakra mission is meant to further expand it so that all the vital areas, all military areas, peak population centers, basically I can say to offer maximum air defense coverage possible. So this is a big air defense network that is being worked on at the time, up and above the air defense infrastructure that we already have in place.
And in the end, we talk about the nationwide special intensive revision. Yesterday, the Election Commission of India announced a nationwide special intensive revision or SIR of electoral rolls in 12 states and union territories. This marks the second phase of the exercise, coming after the first one, which was completed earlier this year in Bihar. Addressing a press conference, Chief Election Commissioner Gyanesh Kumar said that the states and union territories going to polls in 2026, including Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Puducherry, will be a part of the SIR. The draft electoral roll will be published on 9th of December, with the final list expected by the 7th of February. The revision will also take place in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Gujarat, Lakshadweep, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh.
ये वो 12 राज्य हैं जहां पर कल से SIR शुरू होने वाला है. अंडमान एंड निकोबार आइलैंड, यूनियन टेरिटरी, स्टेट छत्तीसगढ़, गोवा, गुजरात, केरल, यूनियन टेरिटरी लक्षद्वीप, मध्य प्रदेश, पुदुचेरी यूनियन टेरिटरी, राजस्थान, तमिलनाडु, उत्तर प्रदेश, वेस्ट बंगाल. इन 12 राज्यों में कुल मतदाता 51 करोड़ के लगभग हैं. लगभग 5,33,000 बूथ लेवल ऑफिसर्स इस महान कार्य में अपना योगदान देंगे. लगभग 7,64,000 बूथ लेवल एजेंट्स जो पार्टीज द्वारा नामित हैं वो इसमें अपना योगदान देंगे और लगभग 10,500 EROs और लगभग 321 कलेक्टर्स. ये पूरी चुनावी कर्मियों की जो टीम है वो इस SIR की फेज 2 में कार्य करेगी और इसको सफल बनाएगी.
Now, despite the assembly elections in 2026, the exercise will not be held in Assam because of the ongoing National Register of Citizens process. The Chief Election Commissioner also clarified that Aadhaar cards can only be used as a form of identification and not as a proof of citizenship. Training of polling officials in the second phase of the revision will begin today. Each officer, Kumar said, will visit every house thrice to ensure that no eligible voter is left out and no ineligible name remains on the list. During the process, enumeration forms will already contain details gathered during the previous revisions, streamlining the verification process. During the press conference, officials noted that frequent migration, duplicate registrations, non-removal of dead voters, and even wrongful inclusion of foreigners have led to significant distortions in electoral rolls, issues the SIR now aims to correct. Now, it's important to note that the first phase in Bihar had drawn considerable attention. When the Election Commission launched the revision in June, it broke from precedent by requiring voters to furnish one of 11 documents to prove eligibility, a move that many critics said resembled a citizenship check. The decision was challenged in court and the process later evolved after interventions by the Supreme Court and feedback from officials in the field. Initially, the Commission had excluded Aadhaar cards, ration cards, and even its own elector's photo identity card or EPIC from the list of acceptable documents, even though EPIC had been valid during the last SIR in 2003. Only those who could link themselves to the 2003 rolls were exempted from providing new documents. By the time the exercise was concluded, however, the process had been adjusted to focus more on inclusion and verification rather than documentary proof of citizenship. The final electoral roll of Bihar now lists 7.42 crore voters, down by more than 47 lakh from June when the revision began, but higher than 7.24 crore names in the draft roll published in August. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank, Bhargava and me, Niharika, Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.